All right, what's going on, guys? NorthStarCEDH here. We're doing a top 16 recap from MN CEDH Discord Win-A-Dual 2, and it was an Underground C that first place took. And Mr. Consistent here with me again. He finally broke his bad luck. He took it down. He took first place. He's got
Finally.
it. Finally. All right, so let's get into number 16, Aragorn, the Uniter. Aragorn, we're using it as a food chain combo deck. Yes, we still have Teferi Time Raveler, we have Displacer Kitten, we have Atali, so there's a bunch of different combos in here that we can do to generate infinite mana. There's Food Chain, like I talked about, Ristic, One Ring, Elish Norn, which is kind of cool in here. Stopping all of its torpor orb for your opponents, but double ETB for you. And when you have a dockside loops, Imperial Recruiter, Ranger Captain Recruiter, turns out it's kind of good when you can double your ETBs. Lauren, that's a cool one in here. Destroy an artifact or enchantment. Hey, heuristic study, I'm tired of it. It's gone. So it's coolest. Like I said, I got 16th place, so I made it top 16. Finale Devastation is another win for this. Neoform's a tutor. 23 instance. Now here's where we kind of see the differences in normal CDH lists. There's no free spells. There's no deflecting swat. There's no fierce guardianship.
To having such a powerful outlet in the command zone that
Right.
just lightning bolts people every time you cast red spells.
Right. Another cool one in this list I enjoyed is Resculpt. Exile target artifact or creature. Granted, you're giving your opponent a 4/4. That we can actually exile the One Ring, which for some decks, that is one of their only draw engines.
One of the things we are running, though, is we are on Skull Clamp. So anytime we cast a green spell, Aragorn makes a 1/1. Which then means once we have our Aragorn engine rolling, we just start skull clamping anytime we cast a green spell and drawing 2 cards, which is super sweet. Not too many CDH decks get to take advantage of skull clamp,
Right.
but I love being a deck that can.
I think it's super good in this list. It's another draw engine. Yeah, you get to sink a mana into it, but you're drawing 2 cards. Most decks can't use Skull Clamp like it was meant to be abused with. So,
Yep.
um,
This deck definitely thrives in a mid-range meta
oh,
because
for
you still
sure.
have to cast your commander. You have to cast another green spell just to draw 2 cards with Skull Clamp.
For sure.
But you're going to be able to break parity on those mid games when they arise, when you have such a powerful card that you're able to enable with Skull Clamp.
One of our win cons is Atali by exiling our opponents so they can't do anything. Or we just, lightning bolt them to the face, like you said, with Aragorn. I would say the versatility of this deck because, Kinnan making the treasures, it's quite good and it can pivot, which a lot of decks can't. So, like you said, this deck thrives in a mid range. 100% agree with this list. It needs a mid range and it can perform. I do like Blind Obedience, though. I think that's a cool add to this list is Blind Obedience.
I played against this pilot in the top 16 match, and Blind Obedience was definitely something that was hurting me. But unfortunately, I was able to play an extra turn spell so that all my artifacts could just untap after I played them out.
15th place, we have Crocsai. Couple cards in here that I think they were testing out. Polywake Prodigy would be the first one. In this list, I'm not a fan of it just because you have to invest in Polywake Prodigy to be good. You play it as it is, and you're going to draw off all the 0 mana spells that your opponents are playing. So it's, even in the early game, it's
Isn't going to happen unless they're already breaching or already
right.
nosing, which in that case, you're already in trouble. So you need to trigger it for you to be even happy with it. The reason
Right.
I am personally a fan of it is we are in a deck that has no card draw in the command zone. And you're always going to be casting Kark early with how this pilot has built this deck. And so if you're just like, okay, I can delay Krark for a turn to play Poliwag the turn earlier, you're gonna get to its average performance is gonna be fairly high for a deck that does not have card draw in the command zone. Not a huge fan of decks that don't need card draw in their opening hands every single time, but this is a deck that can raise the consistency a decent amount.
Right. Like I said, I didn't see it in the when I was playing against this opponent. I seen it
Same.
elsewhere in the top 16. I'm just not a fan of it as you have to invest in this card. And I know a lot of people are still going to be testing this card, whether or not it's going to be CEDH viable. And my personal opinion is I don't like cards that you have to invest in because I would rather be doing other things. I would rather be advancing my win. I would rather be, silencing a Crocside player from winning on what, turn 2 you did? That's my 2 cents on it. As
I
far
hope it works
as
out because I want this card to be good. I want it to be good.
As far as the sorcery package, I think it's fair, pretty standard from the Crocside list that we've seen so far. And then as far as the
Get Probe
ints,
is their version of Adnos.
yep. And the one, yeah, that's like you said. There's no ad nos in there, so you have Get Probe.
This deck is wild. There is nothing in the deck that copies Krarks, so you only have the one. The
Right,
only thing that really takes advantage of it is Tavern Scoundrel and Archmage, which one will give you treasures, the other will give you cards.
right,
Other than that, we're just naturally trying to go for Krark. There's no Necros, no meme bet, no Nas. Like this is like Thoracle or Breach. That is it.
right,
And there isn't crazy accelerated ways to get to those.
right.
Also in the creature package, we are also on Pinnacle Monk, um, which is a land, but also I've heard this pilot say there are ways of doing loops with it where you
Yeah.
can do Pinnacle Monk and Displacer Kitten, I'm
Yep.
assuming,
Yep.
which is really interesting. This is not your traditional Grixis list by any means,
No.
which is why I kind of love it.
Right. The other card that I would say is a little bit more awkward, just because it's not a Rograk commander, is Flare Duplication. Just because you have to sack a non-token red creature. You
As though
know,
you are comfortable sacrificing your Kark, especially if you're going for a Thoracle win and you need your Demonic Consultation to
right.
resolve.
That one, yeah. So, but on the plus side, we have plenty of red creatures
Hmm.
besides our commander. Simian Spirit Guide, I'm not going to count because we're more than likely going to exile Simian Spirit Guide. And if we're
Yep.
casting Simian Spirit Guide as a creature, we're already in trouble. The other cool thing is obviously we're using Grinding Station. So we can just add to our breach lines if we have to. Second artifact, we're going to target ourselves to mill 3 cards. One card that actually did perform very well was Amphibian Downpour, Crom into a frog on turn 3. So I didn't really see any value from it. It was really good. And it has Storm Count, so there was another creature that was targeted, and was now a 1/1. I want to see this card be used more. I think it's very good, and especially with Storm, it's just going to add more fuel to the fire. I'm a big
Hmm.
fan of it. 27 lands. That's, I think, a little much.
Pretty grindy though. This is a pretty grindy Grixis list, and we need to count on having lands
Right.
because we're not nosing or anything like that. So we don't have access to a ton of fast mana. And so I like it in these grindier lists that are looking towards the mid game, which who would be happy to have 3 lands, 4 lands on the battlefield.
Next is Atraxa. All right,
Mm.
Traxa. So this list is slightly different. As you can see, we're only on 6 creatures. I was fortunate enough to play against this Atraxa player. Round 1. It's a little rough. So it's more of a. We have all of the interaction. And when I mean all of it, I mean We have Angel's Grace. We have Orm's Chant. We have Silence. You know, we have Demissal. Final Showdown. Like, this list is playing all of the interaction and then some. It is insane. So, um,
It is
so
insane.
right,
I mean, we're also on Doomsday. You do not see that very often anymore. You only see that in bad Malcolm Timna decks.
right,
Um, and so this pilot opting for Doomsday is being brave, and I wish them the best.
right.
Um, but Doomsday and we're on Yogswell. Like this is a very creative, super spicy Atraxa list, which I absolutely love to see.
The other combo in here is Cham Smog and Witherbloom Apprentice.
The
Um,
most terrifying combo in CEDH, for sure.
yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Well, if it doesn't win you the game, you have lost the game because everyone
Right,
just waits till you have no cards in hand and then you're just out of the game. Like
right.
there is no counterspell backup for it.
No,
It is either I win or I lose.
right. That's round two. I had a Tavesh because it was Saltai. That this was their win con. All right, back to the list. So yeah, like you said, 6 creatures total. Not your typical Atraxa list at all by any means. Monomic Betrayal, Yog's Will, Besiege here. We're for the most part grabbing, Wishclaw, Ristic, Necro. You know, as you can see, we're not playing the One Ring in here. We are doing Animate Dead, Necro, Mystic, plenty of lands. Plenty of lands because we are not playing any ramp at all. It is all interaction. This list is crazy. And he did very well. He's a very good pilot. Yeah, you got anything?
I personally have I personally have not run into this pilot at all. I love their creativity. Looks like there might be some budget considerations. Um,
Yes.
if yeah,
Yep.
but
So,
also has more dual lands than I probably ever will. Um,
yeah,
so
so
yeah, I yeah.
this player has played the game since revised because that's when they could actually go to Shinders and buy packs because you had to know someone for alpha and beta once the UPS driver got to Shinders. So for anyone that isn't familiar with back in the day, Shinders was a thing, and go ask any older Magic player that's been around for a while. Don't worry, I'm not going to get in the. Yes, I'm showing my age for this, but yes, Shinders was a thing. So, but yeah, it was. This list is cool because he has 0 proxies in this list. So that's another cool thing about this list is no proxies whatsoever. 13th place, we got Najila doing Najila things. Whenever a warrior attacks, make a 1/1 white warrior creature that's tapped and attacking. So eventually, we're going to sink enough mana into Najila, having infinite combat steps. Collector Roof, I do like in here.
There
As
of too many places, but when you get to play it, oh man, it feels good.
right, especially since we kind of don't really care about all the artifacts. So stopping your other players by, you know, doing the activated abilities of artifacts like you're the One Ring.
It
Um,
feels pretty bad when you want to go for a Grim Hireling win, which makes treasures, and that's how you win with the Nugila. But most of the time we're going for Derevi. So this pilot thinks they can throw in the collector roof, and it will probably hurt your opponents way more than it will hurt you.
oh, for
So
sure.
I personally like it.
Right, for sure. Sorcery package, somewhat standard. Gamble, demonic tutor, intent, calling ritual,
Yep.
instance. All of the tutors, ritual. We're on ad naz. Uh,
I love that we're on Chance for Glory, another instant speed, take an extra turn,
yep.
which I'm a big fan of. I wish it wasn't in white because I don't play white that often. because there's so many times where I want a second instant speed, take an extra turn.
Right.
So good on them for running that.
Breach lines because intuition just really good. Uh, there's a couple round. There's one round where I had to answer a turn 3 Pyramid of the Abyss, and I'm like, all right, I don't have counter, but I have a way to interact with it, and I cast interaction.
One thing I see that they're on Stern Scolding, but not on Strict Serenade. I'm assuming that's because this pilot prefers to play with the cards they already own and just didn't own a Strict Serenade. But otherwise, that is just a strict upgrade on Stern Scolding.
That's
So
where this next card I kind of think came in. Like, yes, it works with the deck itself because we want to attack and we're doing combat tricks. Druid's Repository, something that you
mhm.
normally do not see at all. It's either the pilot wanted to try it out to see how it did, or it's they just had it and they're like, screw it, it works with the deck. It helps it.
It's old tech now in Najeela. When Najeela was in its heyday, this was absolutely in the deck. I am personally a fan of Najeela decks going back on Druid's Repository. The reason people don't love playing it is you just don't need three different versions of comboing with Najeela, and enchantments are much easier to counter than creatures. But I do like, just having an extra piece of I just win with Najeela, and it is better to it is the easiest one to win with, out of your three wins. Derevi, Grim Hireling, and Druids is the easiest to win with, but also the easiest for your opponents to stop. And so it's kind of a give and take in that slot. But I kind of like it.
Another card that I haven't seen in a top 16 list in quite some time would be Thran Quarry.
Yeah.
It's at the end of each turn, if you control no creature, sacrifice it. Otherwise, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it's another 5 color pip land. We're already on the creature plan regardless. Like we're already going to be doing combat tricks, having Nachila. So it's something that I haven't personally seen, and I think is good in a you know deck that has multiple colors that is on the creature plan already. All right,
Cool.
coming at 12th place, we have our first Rog list. Don't worry, it's not our last, but this is our first, and I'm gonna let Ethan take it away.
So we have Rogsai. I absolutely love this deck, and I love this pilot. This is Eric. I was fortunate enough to take them down in the top 16 game, in a wild game to say the least. If you know, you know. And stopped them from three-peating, winning the third tournament in a row, from this tournament organizer. They are a very good pilot. And convinced me on a couple of deck list choices that you'll see once we get to the number one spot. For this pilot, going choosing to go with the Gitaxian probe instead of the Swan Song that has just become stock now in most Rogsai lists. It's free. Cracks your top deck tutors and checks to see if no interaction is there, at least from one opponent, an early win attempt. Otherwise, Swan Song kind of just doesn't feel great. We are on the wheel package 100%. One thing that is interesting, let me see if I can find it. We are on the Alchemist Retrieval, is in one of our removal spell slots. That is becoming more popular. We go all the way down to the enchantments for Necro Dominance, the new Necropotence, which just eliminates any possibility of going for Underworld Breach lines. But if you have something like Alchemist Retrieval, 1 mana, return it to your hand. Now I go for my Breach. A very solid include that I've been kind of 50-50 on, thinking about going back on it. We, of course, have the new Flare of Duplication that is pure gas. Um, them choosing to switch back to Snap instead of Snap Back, I know they've thought about that a decent amount. Eric is a big proponent of the One Ring in Rogsai. convinced me so much that I have been playing it in my last two or just last tournament list. Um, I have not yet drawn it a single time, but Eric kind of, yeah, Eric is a big proponent of the One Ring, and so with their advice, I have been testing it out. We're also following the ROG side trend of going down to 23 lands. Terrifying, terrifying, terrifying. Um, but it works. All I know is it works. Being at 23 lands, being at a 60 card format amount of lands with 23, which is just crazy. But that's why ROG is one of the best commanders in CDH. It's so good at generating so much mana.
All right, Tibbet, he's back. He did it. Made top 16.
Had a great tournament.
Yeah. I so one card. Obviously, we're gonna take care of the elephant in the room. Grand Arbiter Augustine the Fourth. Not a card that you typically see in CDH, let alone in a Tivit list. We're just gonna take care of the elephant in the room. We are
Get a decent
playing
amount of Tivit lists.
we are playing Storm Drake instead of Gilded Drake. Nuclear Fallout.
Yeah.
Certain lists I've started to see that have started to go and try this more. Sink a bunch of mana into it. Each creature gets twice negative X, and then you get rad counters. The only thing that I see Nuclear Fallout being bad is when you have a breach player, you are feeding them immensely. So
One of the reasons
that's
I'm surprised to not see a Hullbreaker Horror in the list, because if you Hullbreaker Horror infinite mana, that removal spell just wins the game,
mhm.
because you give everyone infinite amount of rad counters and then they just lose.
Right.
There's a bunch of interesting exclusions from this list, not even on Imperial Seal,
Right. I think
and like
I think
not
this
even
is
on
an
Path to Exile.
well, I think this is another list. Yeah, I'm going with this is another list that the player did not want to play proxies. Because going down to
Yeah,
the lands, we have one duel and that's a Tundra. Okay, let me rephrase. We have one OG duel and that is a Tundra. We have, you know, Meticulous Archive, a Morphic Pool, Polluted Delta, Snow Covered, Land, Sea Clouds. So my thought process is this is a player that did not want to play with proxies. Um, Another one is Charitable Levy. Non-creature spells cost one more to cast.
I really,
And
really like this in a Tivit, honestly. Um, because it's not around forever. It just moves you into the late game because it does go away eventually.
mhm,
Because whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, you put a collection counter on it, and if there are three or more, you sacrifice it. You get to draw a card and then search your library for a plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped.
right,
Um, this is phenomenal for Tameshi decks specifically, but also I don't mind it actually in the Tivit list, just because it gets down early, it stops people from winning right away, and then once you get to turn 3, you're a lot more comfortable in Tivit.
right. Another one that I don't really see in Tivit is Trouble in Pairs, because we would
Oh,
rather.
really?
You more likely to play Smothering Tithe, because we got Time
Why not
Sieve.
both?
Sure, let's draw all of the cards with the Run Ring.
Yes.
We are also on Vexing Bauble,
Hmm.
which we do have a couple free spells in here, so that's one thing that would have to watch out for and play around, or just sack Vexing Bauble and then cast our free spells, which seems like a better option. First Totem.
Vexing Bubble has been so interesting because there's this tension between is it controlling or is it like a bad silence effects for aggro decks for turbo decks. Um, I think I lean towards, like, as a turbo player, I lean against playing it, um, as in turbo decks. I actually like it more in controlling decks because it stops ad nauses, it stops breach, it stops, to a certain extent, necros. And then if you're in a deck that's more controlling, that has mana up, playing out a Vexing Bauble and passing, terrifying, scary, hate it, because somebody might just use it as a silence effect. But if I can hold up the mana and wait to use that, um, I really like it. So I'm not against it in this list.
Another one I like in here is Curse Totem.
Yeah.
Really good in Tibet. Another one that I don't really see, but I'm a huge fan of is Dovin's Veto, just because it can't be
Yeah.
countered. And you know,
It's so weird though, because unless you're countering um, a non-creature spell as the first part of the counter war, it feels good in that scenario, where that's the first spell you put on the stack and it just kind of stops the counter chain. It
right.
doesn't feel good if you're trying to counter a winning dockside and your Dovin's Veto is just countering somebody else's counter spell, in which they just ignore the Dovin's Veto and just play around it. Also, deflecting swats still gets it,
Hmm.
and so it it has an incredibly high ceiling and a terrible floor.
Right,
Um, and I just don't know how often the ceiling comes up.
for sure. Um, but yeah, no, it did very well. So I'm happy to see a Tivit that didn't go to time. It so and that's honestly the biggest thing why people don't play Tivit anymore is because
Hmm.
obviously we're trending towards a turbo meta, but at the same
Yep.
time, generally speaking, if a Tivit pilot is at your table, you're going to time, and you need to win before time. So I'm glad to see Tibbet doing well.
For
And
Tivit, with the way the rules are stated, you can't keep taking extra turns once time hits. I would be a fan of the multiplayer rules amending that, where once you get to the last player's turn, like the game ends in a draw once the turn passes to somebody else's turn. So like you can keep taking turns over and over with Tivit because at that point you've won the game.
right,
Um, and stuff like that. And as a Rogsai and red player, I would love my extra turn spells to still work once
no,
we've hit time.
no, you don't get those.
No, come on, give them to me.
Nope. Tim DeCrom, Blue Farm. Blue Farm got there in the top 16. I'm super
It's
happy.
not Blue Farm though.
No, they didn't label it Blue Farm
It's Opus Thief
for a
because
good
this is a
reason.
spicy Timnacrom
It
list.
is. We are playing Notion Thief. You generally don't see Notion Thief in Blue Farm, let alone in CDH at all. I think Notion Thief is a loss, is old tech that people still fear Bowmaster because of the power. And all it takes is someone to flash in a Bowmaster to deal with Notion Thief. But the value that you get off Notion Thief, I think, is still worth it. Um, we're only running two wheels, which, again, that could be.
On three, we're on three.
Where's the third one?
We're on Wheel of Fortune, Whispering Madness, and Windfall.
Oh, yeah, I'm bad. Whispering Madness, because I normally don't see it.
Yeah.
So,
Hunter, the pilot, I have a good relationship with, and was talking to me about how Whispering Madness kept him in a bunch of games actually this tournament, and so I don't think Hunter's going to be going away from Whispering Madness anytime soon. The way he was talking about it.
well, that and the other thing too is most people don't know it exists because it people associate it with being a bad card. But the whole cipher ability on Whispering Madness is actually quite entertaining.
You
Um,
cast it one turn, you put it onto your Crom, and then you get your Narset, then you get your Opus Thief, then you get your Notion Thief, then you get your Smothering Tithe, and then you just get to wheel again next turn.
right.
Um, I love it.
Or or we just cast an ad nos and win.
That too.
Or we just, get our intuition and be like, all right, guys, intuition. All right. I guess I'm gonna have counter backup because fierce guardianship is a thing. So yeah, no,
Totally.
it's this is a cool list, a cool variation of blue farm. Uh, so
Hmm.
um,
Choosing not to be on the new Mockingbird that was released the day before this tournament took place. Mockingbird being the 1 mana and X 1 blue and X copy creature spell that works phenomenally with Ranger Captain. I'm assuming if this tournament was slightly later, we'd definitely be seeing that in this list.
right, and that's where I
Also,
think
yeah,
the pilot didn't want to play with proxies or just the
nope,
cards.
that is
Cards.
definitely not Hunter.
Oh, never mind. I am bad. There's lots of dual lands. So, or just didn't
Nope,
get a
nope.
proxy.
Hunter owns all those. Hunter
Really?
owns all those.
Oh.
I was literally talking to him the week prior to the tournament,
Mhm.
and he is a known Atraxa player and very good and done really
Oh,
well, but just wanted to switch and said, "I think I have all of the cards for this for Tim DeCrom," and so literally just threw together his collection into this list,
got it.
and of course did very well, and was in a crazy top 16 match. Um, that um, that he had to make some interesting choices when down to very few life, would be dying to a one ring and or a mana crypt a flip loss, and so had to make some wild choices in that top 16 match, but didn't end up coming away with the win.
Honestly, I think I remember that pod because I'm not gonna spoil the other deck, but he did end up losing because of the One Ring and the Mana Crypt, right?
Yep,
All
yep.
right, yep, I know that pod. I'm not gonna spoil the rest because they are coming soon. And
Hmm.
yeah, got it. So he is one of the players that spent money in this game a while ago and never sold
Yes,
out because he was
he likes to
smart.
brag that he bought his like one of his dual lands for $35, and I am very jealous.
I'm not going to get into this conversation of how many times I've sold Magic cards and regret it. So yeah. All right. Next we have a Sisse. Now this Sisse list is obviously on the Planeswalker package. Um, and I think Drana and Lavinia is a one that we don't normally see. There's a couple cards I'm gonna go with. Drana. Um, One card that I absolutely is my favorite. It's a pet card. Is Lavinia because
Hmm.
all of your 0 mana can't play them. You can't turbo out a Nas. You can't go Dark Ritual into a Necro that some Rockside players have done.
I love doing that.
I this is as a stacks player at heart, I love Lavinia. Chainer is super cool in here. I love Chainer.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
a lot of Sisei pilots have been moving off Chainer, but still a very good card.
I'm a fan of Chainer. K9 Mark 1. Something that I
Hmm.
just do not see.
No.
So, um, as long as it's untapped, other legendary creatures you control have boards, so it's a protection at that side, which is really cool. And then you can tap a blue and a colorless, tap it, target legendary creature can't be blocked this turn. Super cool here.
If that
Um,
came up.
yeah, I'm not gonna get into it, but it's super cool that this is in here because we can pivot. And I'm a fan of K9 in here because it's almost all legendaries. You know,
Yep.
Urtai is just it's bonkers when you can um flicker it when Displacer is out. A little
Yep.
obnoxious. Anyway,
This list
um
choosing to be on Eldritch Evolution in the sorcery slot. Usually you only see the two with Demonic and Finale, but Eldritch Evolution, great card.
the other
Can't really
one that I've
blame you.
seen would be like Neoform, just because it's 1 mana cheaper.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's not quite as good, especially in this list where you want the versatility of going up two.
mhm.
Um, and you're already planning for a slower game, so you don't even need to worry about your spells being
Right.
efficient, more so powerful.
And that's where I think this is more of your flex spot. Um,
Yep.
because we go to our instance, we're running the basic interaction. Deflecting SWAT, fears, mind break, force. Resculpt I like in here. Abrupt Decay I really like. Card's good. And then the artifact package. Soul Cauldron, super good.
Okay.
We're not running the One Ring, which we're not running ad nauseum, so we don't have to really worry about our life total, but we're not an ad nauseum deck to start with. So, um, flowering of the white tree. Something that I think is kind of cool. Legendary creatures you control get +2/+1 and have board 1, and then non-legendary creatures you control get +1/+1. It's just a better anthem. And
Hard to cast being 2 white. Otherwise, can be. Otherwise, I think every CEDH deck would play it if it was 1 and a white.
right. I guess as far as like the lands, we're on the Forbidden
We're not on
Orchard.
Otawara.
Right, and that's the one thing that I wanted to bring up, which I thought was odd. We do have Mount Doom though, which
It's one of the ways we win the game with infinite mana and infinite flickers.
right, that's the other thing I was gonna say is like it's if we're starting to
Yep.
chain the flickers in. So but no, I'm glad Sisse did well in the event, made top 16. Back to Tivit. Tivit number 2. Now this one is a more traditional Tivit list that we're used to seeing as, Hallbreaker, Horror, Displacer Kitten, Oppo. We don't have Grand Arbiter in here. I lied.
Hidden by Vault Boy, Cap Collector.
I lied. We have Grand Arbiter. Okay, for some
It's
reason.
good enough.
I mean, sure. Boromir, we have in here.
I like it.
This is definitely not a comedian list that we're used to seeing.
Mhm.
I think it's a modified comedian list, is what this was. Because a lot of it is your typical Tivit stuff. Savine, Toxic. We don't have Nuclear Fallout in here.
Yep.
We are on Pass and Swords.
Good.
We are on Delay.
Yep.
Trickbind is different that that they added.
I like that in this. We're a control deck. Trickbind is really good at controlling.
Right. Whereas I would say one that most people don't play anymore just because it's 3 blue and X, so it's more difficult to cast. We're on the Curse
Opting
Totem.
for trying to win the game instead of just going to time.
Right. We got One Ring, Time Sieve, obviously, Curse Totem. I would say Curse Totem is at this point almost a staple.
You have to play it.
At least in our meta, it is a staple in the Tivit list.
I mean, when you see Sisse, Kinnan running around, Magda, like any Thrasios deck, which we're going to see next, it is an absolute requirement to be on Curse Totem. I've thought about just throwing in my blue farm lists because it's so effective against so many decks.
Maybe. We are on the Cavern of Souls.
It won Erica tournament.
Yeah. This list we are on Cavern of Souls. But yeah, for the most part, it's a stock Tivit list, really. Muddle main, Mana Drain, Get Lost, Psych Rift. It's for the most part a stock Tivit list that we're used to seeing. So next we have Thrasios Rograk.
We are in trouble in pairs again.
Right. The Vault is one that's different.
Fumori Vault, which is really good when you have tons of artifacts, which sometimes Tivit can just end up in a position where they have tons of artifacts, and this just feels like a tutor at that point.
Yeah.
It's it's real nice.
Anything you want to say that's special about this list from Zeke?
Is
Or is it
awesome. These commanders are sweet. I know in some of the local areas that I play, this deck is getting a lot of play. I play against two pilots that really love this list. I'm even being tempted to play it. It looks super sweet. We get the speed of Roger and the outlet and grind of Thrasios, which feels great. We get to play a bunch of free counter spells. We get to play the Flare of Duplication, Flare of Denial, Fierce Guardianship, and Deflecting SWAT, which is a huge allure to this deck. Otherwise, we're just an awesome creature combo deck. Zeke is a very good pilot. I've run up against them a decent amount in these tournaments. Um, One thing that they're not on is any breach lines, which me and another friend were trying to, like think out loud, like, is breach good enough for this? And I'm not quite sure. Um, and that feels weird to say that breach isn't good enough for a list, but that's just because this commander pair and these creature combos are really really good. We get to run Magda main board, which is super sweet. I love any deck I get to do that. It helps us get part of our devoted druid combo. Um, we don't have any dragons we get to pull out, but we do have some powerful artifacts that we do get to pull
Candelabra?
out. Candelabra, Cloudstone Curio, um, and where
Cannon
is it?
combo with
Machine
this.
God's Effigy.
Yes.
Machine God's Effigy. Effigy. That's how I'm going to say it today. We get to be on Cloud of Fairies because we are, and Sowing Mycospawn, which just tutors up our Gaia's Cradle. We are the best Gaia's Cradle deck, probably. Sisay would like to beg to differ as well. But otherwise, I would probably give this deck the best Gaia's Cradle deck trophy. Um, we are on 20 different creatures that are all just straight gas. It's a really sweet list, and I'm tempted to play it. No.
Nope. Curse Mirror is another awesome card in this list, as it's
Hmm.
another copy. Super cool list. I like it. It's just not my playstyle as far as creature combo. I'm a Thassa Demonic Consultation player because it's efficient. It does good, and then having counterspell backup. So, um, we get to do a couple cool things. Sylvan Library is obviously really good. It's another draw engine. Earthcraft. Some people like it. Some people don't. It's, I think, a personal preference.
I like it in
There's
this list.
there's like I said, it's either you love it or you hate it, and I literally think it's coming down to a personal preference. But there are silly things you can do with Earthcraft. 26
I mean, you just
lands,
have two cheap commanders that you want to be able to abuse.
right? Um, with 26 lands, I think that's the correct number. Talent Gates is really cool, but at the end of the day, we are have a bunch of cheap creatures to play.
Hmm.
Obviously, Consecrated Strengths and Hullbreaker Horror are two bigger ones, but as long as we don't see those till mid game, or we can tutor into them, or draw into them later on, it's I think that's just going to be a turning point if we can get a Sphinx out or a Hullbreaker Horror mid game, and then the turning point is like, all right, we're just going to win the game from here because we're going to outvalue everyone and then just combo win with all of our free spell counter backup. Oh, it's a good list.
Absolutely.
It's just not
Wait,
my.
I just noticed we are not on. Um, Now I can't remember the name. The creature that untaps everything at everyone else's upkeep.
Yes, we are not
What is that called?
on. It's a green creature. I know. I can't think of it. But
Yeah,
yeah, another
wow.
card.
Both of us are just pulling a blank. That's hilarious.
Yep.
But yeah, that feels super surprising to me. Zeke, please explain yourself.
Yeah. All right, Zeke, you're getting called out. So you're
Explain yourself,
you're
Zeke.
gonna have to explain yourself. So that means you have to do top 16 with the next event,
Yes.
and I guess you are gonna be on camera because you have to explain yourself on these allegations.
Zeke, two things. You're going to have to tell us what the name of the creature is because we can't remember right now. Two, you're going to have to explain yourself. And also, the third thing, you're going to have to win the next event so that you have to do the YouTube video with with Andrew and explain yourself.
Yeah,
I think Zeke will sign up for that. He needs
I
to win the
mean,
event and explain himself
well, my
while
next
not
one,
being on
all he has
camera.
to do is do top 10.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, sure.
Because my next
Whatever.
one is in Forest Lake at Punch Out. And this
Yes.
one, we put out a stipulation. We agreed, the owner and I agreed, as we're doing a cash event. If we sell out 52 spots, we are giving away 1.5K to the top 10. That is the first of CDH tournaments in Minnesota, and I hope this is successful because I would love to give out more cash in the future.
I'll be there. Hopefully, Mr. Consistency can keep his name.
I think you're going to have a bigger target on your head.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna have to switch decks for next tournament.
This a number two. Again, Planeswalker combo. This one we have 25 creatures. A couple different ones. First one right away is Colossal Sky Turtle. I'm a huge fan of this card. Just for the channel effects of, you know, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or return target creature to its owner's hand. The versatility of the Sky Turtle that it has is fantastic. We're also running Rocco in this one, which is different from the last one.
Rocco is
And
just popping up in all of these Sisei lists. I don't play Sisei currently, but Rocco has been popping up everywhere, being two extra colors that your commander isn't to bump up the power. Also, I just would like to say before we keep going, this pilot Nick is an incredibly good Sisei pilot. Spoiler alert, gave me my only loss of the tournament, handed it right to me. Um, and I might be reaching out to this pilot, Nick, to get some advice because I kind of want to add Sisei to my repertoire. Um, One thing that we also didn't see in the last list is we're on Orcish Bowmasters.
yes,
Just such a good card. I don't know why you wouldn't be on it. Also in this list is the new Felia or Felia, the little dog, adorable. Pretty much all of our interaction is either stopping our opponents from winning or getting rid of opposition agent. That is pretty much all we have. That is why Felia is in the deck. That is why Colossal Sky Turtle's in the deck. That's why we have any of the other interaction that we do is we cannot have um, opposition agent on the battlefield, and we will do anything we can to get rid of it.
Urtai. So,
Or tie.
this one we're on Finale and Demonic for the sorceries. We are running Deflecting Spot, Fierce Guardianship in this one. As far as free
Mhm.
spells, Flusterstorm and Offer, Mental Misstep, Swan Song. Um, in Offer, I know a lot of people still play it, but it's one of those ones where I'm starting to lean where it kind of feels bad because you're giving your opponent two treasure tokens. That's
Feel
huge.
good defending your wins. It does feel good stopping your opponent's wins, is where I've come to it. And
Right.
in a list where we're only on so many counterspells, just run the most versatile ones. So I'm actually not too much of an enemy against playing with this one in this list. I am against it in more fast decks that like I want to use my counterspells to
Right.
defend my wins because usually the only thing holding back my opponents from countering all my spells is mana. So I don't really want to give you mana with offer. But if you're casting a terrifyingly awesome spell, like I would happily give you mana in exchange for your spell not resolving. But usually I'm not super big fan of you cast a counter spell, I give you treasures. Now that you have treasures to counter my thing again.
Right.
So yeah.
Two cards that, well, actually, one big difference is Tiny Bones. I don't think the other Sisei list was running Cultist.
No, they weren't on Cultist or Chromatic Ori, which those two go hand in hand together,
Mm-hmm.
um, so that you can get the Chromatic
Right.
Ori out. And Tiny Bones is a new addition.
Yep.
I personally love it. You need things to buff up Sisei's power, and this just gives you that little extra value of making your opponents discard a card. And it also says whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, any number of target players each mill a card and lose a life. So it
Right.
is a way to win the game as well. Absolute staple in my mind, at least for a little while, in these Sisei lists.
Um, we're on the Mount Doom package, obviously. It's another win con. 29 lands.
We're not on any of the new Assassin's Creed lands like Ab- Abstergo Enterprises or something like that, which some Sisei pilots are on. Can't remember exactly the text on there, but I think some of the lands might be getting updated with some of the new sets that have been coming out. But this
Yeah.
pilot opting to not run them quite yet.
Right. Overall, they did fantastic with this.
Mhm.
So this player got fifth. Um, in their Swiss, they lost to a top deck bowmaster, which we'll find out why the next one. This also was their very first CEDH tournament ever, and on top of it, this was their fourth time piloting the deck. And this player is more or less a celebrity now in the Winota Discord, as Winota has traditionally not done well in a larger CDH tournament, meaning 64 plus, and they took fifth with it. This was fantastic. I can't wait for them to come back and just crush hopes and dreams of people with Winota, because everyone forgot about Winota. Everyone's like, oh, Winota's bad now because, we have Tivit, we have Nadu, Silly Rogsai. I am all sorts of all in favor of this. Um,
Absolutely. This pilot didn't lose a game until their top 16 match, and then they were one Winota flip away from winning. They missed at least one Winota flip on their last turn, which didn't allow them to kill the player that they needed to kill that moment. And so just some luck away from making a top four with this list, and then doing who knows what on 47 creatures in this list, which
right,
is so cool. Like, how many lists do you get to run that many creatures?
right.
It is awesome, and some really good stuff in here.
Uh,
Winota has been getting a lot better lately with all these new sets. Very quietly, very sneakily, getting some new additions. Um, and
I
yeah,
think, if I remember right, and obviously people can correct me on this, but if I remember right, because I talked to the pilot on this, this is basically a old comedian list.
hmm
Because people have been trying to, oh, what's good, what's bad, what's this, how does Winota do good again? One card that I remember more or less seeing that was questionable is Skrelv's Hive. And
yeah,
it's more or less just a little bit too slow,
yeah, I agree.
because we have to wait till our next upkeep to create a 1/1, and we can't attack with it because it doesn't have haste. So we have to wait
Nope.
two full turns before that 1/1 colorless can attack and have a Winota trigger. So this is one that I'm waiting to see what she replaces this with. So I'm super glad that she did this well on this list, and
One
I
of the
can't.
best cards that one of the best cards that Winota's gotten recently is the card right next to Skrelv's Hive, which is High Noon, the best rule of law effect, I will say. I mean, it just each player cannot cast more than one spell each turn for 2 mana straight
Mhm.
up, but also has the ability to spend 5 mana to deal 5 damage to any target.
Mhm.
In Winota is probably one of the few decks that can actually play this, um, but it
Oh,
was
for
a huge
sure,
upgrade for the deck.
for sure, for sure. 30 lands. We
Plus two
are
MDFCs, so 32 total lands, which is
right,
crazy.
right. Well, I mean, to be fair, the two MDFCs are Shatter Skull Smashing and a Mirror's Call. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for to see more Winota and
Hmm.
how consistent Winota can do in future events. I'm super excited for this one. I'm really happy that this list performed this well. So, anything else on Winona?
Just that, hopefully, I actually get to play a game against Sarah sometime. Because the only game we got paired up against each other was the final round, and we chose to draw for the sake of the other two pilots in the tournament, just so we wouldn't kick them out of top 16, just because me and Sarah wanted to play. Mostly, I wanted to play so I could take the top seed going into the finals from her. Um, but we ended up just drawing for the
Right,
other sake of the other two. But hopefully, sometime Sarah and I can actually play, and we can, show off versus each other.
right. All right. So let's next person. Obviously we're top four now. This is Time. This player has been on Time for quite some time. This is the first time that, to my knowledge, has done this well in a quote larger 64 plus event. So this is
Alone in Minnesota.
well, right, just alone in Minnesota because there's three Time players that I know of, and two of them more or less play with each other on a regular. So, but basically, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to use IM for its activated ability, remove three counters, and we're doing loops. Um, one loop that we have is Orcish Bowmaster. You know, we can loop Orcish Bowmaster in the graveyard from our, Young Wolf sacking it, Strangler Guys, our Money Changer. There's a bunch of different ways that we have ways to put counters on our creatures. And the other one is White Plume Adventure by going through the dungeon enough times that we, you know, kill our opponents by, constantly playing the White Plume Adventure and going through the dungeon.
How to
First,
get to the loop, honestly. I just know that those are the final creatures that do go through the loop.
right, right.
All I
I'm
know is just kill Tyam or be like me and just win before Tyam can do anything.
right.
That's
Time,
that's my entire game plan against Tyam. I know very little about it.
right. One of these times, I would like to have this pilot actually go through and explain the loop on video so that people can understand it. But it is
Andrew,
a
you don't have 12 hours to record, okay?
it is a difficult list. This pilot's very good, and
Very good pilot.
at, as we were discussing before the video, I think one thing that Tyam needs is a pilot who's good at politicking the game because you have very little interaction to deal with people. At your core, you're a green deck. Honestly, you have so many green pieces in here that you just don't really care what others do because I have 42 creatures and I need to, assemble my loops to go and kill you with Orcish Bowmaster. So, Court Calling, Green Sun, that's our tutors, crop rotation, grabs Cradle, tutors. Pod's fantastic in this deck. Um, it just grabs any creature that we need. As far as enchantments, we're on Earthcraft. Vraska joins up. It gives the Tyam, all the creatures on the Tyam, a Death Touch counter, and that's literally what it is to start the engine. Um, you know, there is a chance that we're going to do combat damage, so we can, start drawing from Vraska, but more often than not, it's going to add another counter to our creatures so we can do our time activations. Like I said, if we can get a condensed discussion of how time works, that would be much appreciated. But it's more complicated, and I'm not don't have the experience of times, but I've played against time enough that I know when to be like, all right, we need time's gonna start doing stuff. We need to stop. That's as far as like my knowledge of time comes in. Is all right,
I just
guys.
I can't even be brave enough to play Tyam because it doesn't even run demonic tutor. Like I can't get around that. That is crazy to me.
Hmm.
Um, like yeah,
Yeah, we have Nadu coming at third place. This pilot I know personally. Um, the last event, this pilot was on Pivot, and they were basically doing some testing with Nadu as far as like the group on like how to beat Nadu, and they were doing so much testing that they're like, screw it, I'm just gonna play Nadu. So it ended up working really well for him. Um, so this one we are on Polywig Prodigy. I'm more or less leaning that Polywig Prodigy is, somewhat better in Nadu versus the Croxylus list that we saw earlier. Just because we have more creatures that we're playing. Obviously, yes, we're doing Nadu loops with um, Lightning Greaves, Shuko, and Umber Mantle. That's obviously plan A, so that we can, win the game with either Nantuko or Scootstorm. But it is also another just draw engine. Flesh Duplicate in here, the enablers of Seeker, Skybreaker, Sylvan, Safekeeping. Um, Unctus is honestly the most abused in Nadu. Um,
100%.
and
It's Adnos. It's blue Adnos.
um, we're running Eldritch Evolution, Green Sun Zenith, Finale Devastation for our tutors. Like I said, we're gonna grab
Not on the
Scoot.
Neo form, which is interesting. Not thinking it worth it.
Right. This one we are on 27 instance. One I think is kind of cool is Misdirection. It's kind of like
Yes.
older tech that you kind of don't really see anymore. So Misdirection, in certain lists, I think is very good. Like Nadu, for example, is you're only limited to 2 colors. Because our targeted removal is Pongify, and really that's it. We can bounce it back to our hand. Wait, yeah, we have Psych Rift, but we don't have actual removal outside of counterspells. And we're not even running the creature counter. We're just running Swan Song.
14 different pieces of stack interaction, which I love to see. I've been toying with the like control-y Nadu list that's like, I'm going to run 15, 18 counter spells,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to throw down Nadu and win. But I'm going to stop you all first. Um,
Right, and
yeah,
that's
this list,
that's where this list is more focused on is I'm gonna stop you and then I'm just gonna go win.
they are on the Sea King's Blessing. Um, Target all of your creatures for 1 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that card just feels like they're not on the green one. I don't see it. There's a green instant that does the exact same thing. Um, that is, an interesting one as well. That, yeah, both of them need testing to see if they're worth it being in the list, um, because you need your engine kind of already set up, and I feel like once you're already set up, you don't need it unless you're like trying to do like manual loops with
Right,
Nadu, and you don't actually have one of the free equippers. Then it feels good to give you a boost of card advantage. But otherwise, it's just kind of,
right.
I don't know.
Obviously, it did well for him.
Yeah,
So, all right. I promise this list is different because we have what did you say? 14 pieces that are different from the previous list.
we have 14 cards that are different.
Yeah. So now to number two. Obviously got second. Um, This one, we're doing more creature stuff. So Walking Ballista is our targeted removal. We're on more ramp like Arbor Elf, Elvish Mystic. Um, Elvish Herd is kind of cool. Nantuku Spellskite, I still think Spellskite is should be in Nadu. It's fantastic.
And
This one's pulling Stormdrake, which it might be good.
I've seen a lot of people switching to Stormdrake so that they can get rid of stacks pieces. Although I don't know how many
Right,
stacks pieces Nadu really cares about.
right. This one I believe we're on. Ewit was no, I think the other one had Ewit.
Yep, Ewit. Nope.
Ewit,
Ewit is different.
yeah.
This other creature, uh, Nurturer. This new Nurturer 1-mana green card that whenever a player plays a green spell, you may pay 1. If you do, target creature gets +1/+1. I would need to ask a judge, but there is a chance this targets no matter if you pay the 1 or not. I am not quite sure. Um, we're going to get to another card once we get to the artifacts that targets no matter what as
Mm-hmm.
well, even if you don't pay. So that might be the case for this one as well, which makes it really interesting in Nadu.
Right. So if you are a judge watching this video, please comment down on Nurture Initiate because um, I can message my judge, but I don't know when he would reply because he's usually
Mm-hmm.
busy on Fridays. So this one's on the Neoform plan. This one only 23 instants. So obviously we're
Are on
more
the new Into the Flood Maw instant that has been replacing a decent amount of Cyclonic Rifts in like blue farm lists
Mhm.
because it's 1-mana return an opponent's creature. But if you promise a tapped fish, you can return any non-land permanent that an opponent controls to the hand. So it's not great unless you're trying to do controlling or stopping your opponents from winning,
right.
because you can't return your own dockside, which I prefer all my removal spells or all my bounce spells to return my own dockside because I'm
Right.
greedy. But Into the Flood Maw is the best 1-mana bounce spell now
Mhm.
in CDH,
Right.
besides maybe Chain of Vapor. Chain of Vapor is
Um,
kind of hard to beat.
this one is running Noxious Revival. I think that's really good. As
Yeah.
Nadu, you're honestly being one of the more targeted players outside of like Roxai. Artifact that you were wondering,
Yeah.
Lapis. Right.
Lapis Lazuli Talisman, however you want to pronounce it. Um, got into a discussion with somebody about the ruling, and the judge ruled that when you can untap target permanent if you pay 3, but you only get to use the ability when a blue spell is cast. Um, but the ruling on this is whenever a blue spell is cast, you target your creature and then have the option to pay. And so you're pretty much never going to pay. But anytime someone casts a 1-mana counterspell, cool, I'm going to target my creature and draw a card or ramp. And so honestly, I am a big fan. It is completely dead outside of having a Nadu on the battlefield.
Right.
But you're probably going to have a Nadu on the battlefield a decent amount of the time.
Right. So, this one again on 32 lands, just like the other one
Yes,
was.
the
I
land that I'm the 2 lands that I'm happy to see in this list is Prismatic Vista, which is a fetch land for basics, but once we're going off with Nadu, we need more fetch lands. So just
right,
having this in the list, I am still a fan of it because it's required for the combo, I guess you could say.
right,
Um, but it does feel bad if there's an opposition agent. The other one I'm really happy to see is Command Beacon. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap it, sacrifice it, and put your commander from the command zone from your command zone into your hand.
right. I think this
Which is
is
great when there's Dranniths or your Nadu's been
huge.
killed 3 times.
Right. And that's the one thing with Nadu is like it's gonna get countered multiple times. It's gonna someone's going to exile it, destroy it, whatever it is. And like you said, it gets around Drannith. This is huge. I
Hmm.
don't think it's suitable for every deck. But for
No.
example, like Nadu, where you're only two colors, I think this is fantastic when you hit it, when you need it in the later game. When your
Hmm.
Nadu, now costs 7, 9. Like you're not gonna cast Nadu for 7 or 9. You're just gonna lose
No.
the game by then. So alright, and then of course first place, Rogsai, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Consistent. This is his own list. Go ahead, take it away.
Awesome. Fun tidbit about this list. I have been preparing Blue Farm for the past month for this tournament. I have top forward previously. I had top forward 4 tournaments in a row, but had not won a tournament. And my entire goal was just to win a tournament. At this point, I'm like, I don't even care if I lose this tournament as long as I win the next one. For my pride, I needed to win one. And the day before the tournament, I said, screw it. I actually don't love playing Blue Farm. It's not my style of Magic. And so I texted Eric, the previous Rogsai list pilot, and I was like, I'm running Rogsai. And they're like, I love that for you. And so I ran Rogsai. And in all honesty, this is the worst I have ever played in a tournament. I made multiple misplays every single round, and it just did not matter. It just didn't end up mattering. I got lucky in the right spots. I played really well in other good spots. I had to make some ballsy plays. Maybe I'll mention the finals game a little bit later, a little bit scuffed, but I won. But let's look at some of the creatures. So, if you listen to the last top 16 breakdown, you will have heard my rant about how bad Orcish Bowmasters is. It is still bad. I'm still holding on to that. Um, but I had to switch my mindset of thinking it is just controlling the mid game to it is a board wipe combo piece. I'm playing 3 wheels, and so it is a board wipe. That Bowmaster's token can do some work. It won me a game just threatening life totals, attacking people. Um, it is good enough. Still, like if I wasn't worried about stacks pieces, I would take it out. But I was worried about some stacks pieces in this tournament, so I threw it in with the advice of again the previous Rockside pilot, Eric. I was also testing Valley Flood Caller, the new Flash enabler. My 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 philosophy of why I wanted to run it even without being able to test it prior to the tournament was I think of it as a 1 mana more, Born Upon a Wind, which again, big downside being 1 mana more, but it feels uncounterable. And I can throw it down early and go, cool. I'm just going to breach win whenever I think the opportunity is right. It almost feels like a terrible Grand Abolisher because I just play it down and go, I will just wait for a window now. I will hold back all my tutors. I will have a bajillion mana and just win later. If as long as you have tutors and mana, like throwing down a Valley Flood Caller is just going to win you games. It was my philosophy. Also, I'll be honest, until right before the tournament, I did not read the last line of text that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, um, spell birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, and you untap them, which works phenomenal with Paradise Mantle, giving it an tap ability. So you can storm off, untapping it and tapping it for mana. Honestly, did not read that last part of the text before I put it in, but that's just me being dyslexic. Going on to the sorceries, this is pretty much stock at this point. I am a pilot that chooses to run 3 total extra turn spells. I am experimenting taking 1 out. I'm not sure if I need them all in or not. I just haven't had a big reason to pull them out. In my testing list, I am pulling it out. I am on the Git probe. I am a big fan of Git probe right now. Um, Thinking about adding in Wheel of Misfortune back in after this tournament. It no people are less likely to counter it in the early game. It doesn't mess up your opponents in the early game, but if you're going fourth, honestly, it feels a lot better after your opponents have dumped their hands to just wheel your own hand and let your opponents keep theirs. In the instance, um, I'm on Deadly Rollick. I don't think I have any other spice here in the instance. Otherwise, just pretty classic Rogsai. I am thinking about going on to Alchemist Retrieval. Um, I'll show this later, but my ad Nas mana value for my deck is terrible. My Nas is actually better mana value wise in my TNK lists and than my Rogsai list. But I just have so much more mana and velocity that my Naz's are turn out better in Rogsai, but the mana curve is terrible for it. So I'm actually thinking about taking out Deadly Rollick for Alchemist Retrieval, just to lower the curve a little bit.
And so you also
Some,
have
yeah.
a lot less mana or lands, I should say, in this
Yep.
list versus TNK.
Oh, totally. I'm only on 23. I've been liking it so far. One of the things that I have been thinking about, I did take out um, Force of Negation because that is just stopping my opponents from winning. There's very few times I am winning on somebody else's turn, and so it just feels bad being a free counterspell that doesn't help protect my wins, which I am greedy. All I want is my wins. I don't care about your wins. You can win all you want as long as I get to try and win before you. There have been some lists that I've been seeing that have taken out Force of Negation, Force of Will, and Mindbreak Trap. It's a little spicy for me, but I am going to be testing it. Why not, baby? Um, in the artifacts section, I am a huge fan of Grinding Station. I think you have to be on it in Rogsai at this point. I love being able to Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation for early draw engines and Nazes and stuff like that, which just keeps your Breach games alive. Having another, like, not even caring if I exile my Brain Freeze to a Force of Will because I have Grinding Station. It won me a game during the tournament, and I'm sticking with it. I also was testing the One Ring. I think I'm taking it out. Um, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it. Testing Bolus's Citadel in its place currently for enchantments, Necro Dominance. Oh boy, I have a love-hate relationship with it. If it's in my opening hand, I hate that I have to keep it usually. Yeah. Um, little story about Necro Dominance and the finals. I have a Necrodominance hand, which means I know Necrodominance, which means my only win hope is either getting a butt ton of mana really quick and be able to remove it with a bad option to remove it, um, or I just have to go for a Thoracle win. In this position, with how it plays out, my I have to exile my Underworld Breach. My only way of winning the game is with Thoracle, and so I have to keep some very regrettable cards in my hands. I had to keep a talisman, which got me some flack because I needed the third colored pip. Um, and the way the game evolved in the finals, I in my head I knew there was no counter spells floating around. I knew the likelihood of counter spells for non-creature spells was very low because my Necrodominance had resolved. Other spells had resolved. I knew the likelihood of removal for my Necrodominance was very low because I had gotten multiple turns with it, even though my draws were terrible. Um, and then a rule of law effect was played out. And so I was in this very awkward position of now draw engines were out, Rhystic Study was out, Polyweb Prodigy was out. I am going to be going into my fourth turn with one removal spell, and if that gets countered, which it most certainly would if there was any counter spells out, I am dead because my life total is very low. I have very little life left, and there's Nadus out ready to attack me. So what I have to choose to do is on the end step before my fourth turn is Tainted Pact and claim my Tainted Pact of I do not know what I am getting, which was true because everyone proceeded to let it resolve, and I exiled my entire library. I did not know what I was getting, so technically it was not lying. And then going to my turn and Thoracling. Turns out there was interaction at the table, but maybe some misplays along the way. But I don't care because I won. So,
I
tournament I have ever played, had to rely on some of my opponents helping me out, but I don't care anymore. I played great the previous four tournaments and got top four. I will take a bad tournament and winning any day now.
right. One thing I do want to ask because I've
Yes.
seen other ROG side players testing it and having success with it, and that
Hmm.
is Leyline of Anticipation.
Yeah. I've wanted to test it since seeing it from one of the last CEH tournaments, one of the bigger ones. But I just I figured I had heard some other people talking about Valley Flood Caller is just going to replace it, and I kind of agreed. And so I haven't gotten around to testing it yet. I know a friend of mine, John, he was on Valley Flood Caller and Anticipation for this tournament on a different version of Grixis, and he's like, "I'm taking him out." So I'm like, "Okay, maybe I'll just trust John on this one." But if you get it out on turn 0, you're probably winning the game. And I was telling somebody this, I have necroed so much more than I have, nosed. I have only nosed one. I've played 2 tournaments with Roxai. I've only nosed once before turn 5 in those 2 tournaments. I've only nosed once before turn 5 in those 2 tournaments. And I have necroed 6 times probably.
Yep.
Um, and so, maybe it's worth it. Um, I'm just thinking it's probably too low card quality, but also I love those types of cards that are terrible outside of winning, but all I care about is winning in this list.
Oh,
So,
for sure.
not on it currently. I want Valley Flood Color to be good. I so badly want it to be good because I have a cool shiny version too. So, yeah.
Shiny cards are the way to go.
Amen.
So 23 lands. You are playing Undercity Sewer.
Yep. I am sold on a Surveil land. The only reason I chose to go with this Surveil land and not the red black one was because I had this one.
Okay.
And I think I might actually end up switching to the red black one. There's been a couple of times where I've wanted it, um, but I don't know.
All right. Since you're greedy, I have to ask: City of Traders.
I like City of Traders, absolutely. You should play it. Also, I'm hoping to win one in a couple of months here in September with the Legacy event. If you want to talk about that.
I mean, we can. I mean, technically, everything's all on top deck. All my events are on top deck, and I've got technically 3 scheduled. I have my CDH tournament at Top Deck, or sorry, not Top Deck, at
Punch Out.
Punch Out Gaming in Forest Lake. That's the cash event. September, and that was August. Oh Jesus,
16th or 17th.
17th, I think. I gotta look at the schedule. It's the 17th. I was gonna say the wrong day. Anyway, August 17th is Punch Out. August 24th, I go to 2D Con. That's Saturday. So if you're free, I highly recommend coming. But there is a chance it sells out, or if it already sold out. Um, September 14th is back at Highlander Games in Blaine, and that is for the LED for first place. There's quite a few people that I have talked to that are like, I would rather have an LED versus dual, and then some other players are like, I already have all those. I need duals. So I'm more or
We'll
less
take anything on the reserve list.
right. That's basically what it's going to be. I depending on how Punch Out goes, I might do more cash events. I'm if so, it all depends on how the turnout is, how people, put what people want, and then like you said, the Legacy event in St. Cloud. We've been trying to get Legacy going forever and just keep going. And I've reached out to some other people to try to get Legacy events and figure out scheduling. And we finally just pulled the trigger on it and got the green light from the fan zone in Waite Park, September 28th. First place is getting a City of Traders. I'm not going to spoil anything else because I just bought it and it hasn't shipped yet. But there may or may not be something special with this City of Traders that, as it's going to be on all the socials once I get it. So it's pay attention to my socials: NorthStarCEDH, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you're in the Discord, join the Discord. There's going to be links. It'll be in there. We are trying to grow the community, so it's going to be a full 75 proxy legal tournament Just no paper proxies. That's all I ask. Because it's September 28th, the end of September. We have 2 months. 2 months should be more than enough time to order proxies for a deck that you want to learn to play and figure out Legacy, because Legacy is super fun. So I'm excited.
Playing my first ever Legacy games for that event.
I'm excited.